Welcome to Beyond the Skyline, Black Excellence in Dallas-Fort Worth Commerce, where we delve into the vibrant tapestry of Black-owned businesses shaping the economic landscape of our community. I am your host, Leslie D. Thompson, and together we embark on a journey to discover the stories, triumphs, and innovations driving entrepreneurship in the heart of North Texas. Join us as we celebrate the resilience, creativity, and success of these trailblazing entrepreneurs and explore the rich cultural heritage that fuels their endeavors. A podcast where every episode is an ode to Black excellence. Visit us online at dallasfortworthblackowned.com and follow us on social media at Dallas Fort Worth Black Owned. Now sit back, settle in, and savor the scenery beyond the skyline. Hi everyone, I am so excited about my special guest today, none other than Miss Charletra Sharp. Charletra is the owner of Cup of Vibes Coffee Shop in Arlington, Texas. Charletra, welcome to Beyond the Skyline.
Thank you so much. I am so glad to be able to talk with you today and just be a part of this sharing of the businesses in our area.
Yes, and thank you for accepting my invitation. Well, as we get started, I would like to invite you to tell our listeners a little about yourself, how long you've been in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and just anything that you want to share about the Metroplex itself.
Absolutely. So, as you stated, I'm Charletra Sharp. I was born and raised in Arlington. I know that I'm one of the few. People are always surprised to meet individuals that have actually been here all of their lives. And so I've been here all of my life, except for my short stints for college. So I went to Baylor University in Waco, Texas for undergrad, and Washington University in St. Louis for graduate school. And as a part of those experiences, I also spent some time as an exchange student in Mexico, as well as an intern in Ghana. Wow. In West Africa. And so had those short stints away. But after graduating, I ended up moving back to the Metroplex.
Wonderful. Yeah, you are so right. These days, I would say 60%, if not more, of the people that I run into are not natives of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So it's really interesting to meet new people, but I'm always, it's a pleasant surprise when I meet someone, speak with someone who is from the Dallas area. I myself am also from Dallas. I grew up in Oak Cliff and have been here most of my life. And I also, lived away when I was in college, College Station, and then about a year and a half in California. But that's great to know that you know about Dallas, you know about the Metroplex and all the things. Awesome.
Yes. I'll mention that my husband, he's also from Oak Cliff, so he went to Carter High School. He would love to have that shout out there, folks.
Only in Oak Cliff. Well, I myself am also a Carter Cowboy, so hey, you got yourself a good dude.
I agree.
That is wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I, along with my three older sisters, all graduated from the David W. Carter High School.
Okay, the David W. Well, look, I graduated from the James Bowie High School.
Okay.
Throw that
Shout out to James Bowie. I love it.
Bowie balls.
I love it. Well, as we're talking about the DFW area, many of the listeners are from the area. A lot of people are new to the area. Even those who have established businesses in the area are not from here. Many have moved from other states and decided to make Dallas their home and make an imprint with their businesses. So some of them, even if they've been here for 10, 15 years or more, there's nothing like knowing the city, knowing the Metroplex from having the experience of growing up here. So I want to ask you, what do you find interesting about the DFW area? Or what are some of your favorite things to do in the Metroplex? Maybe even something that you remember from your earlier years.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great question, especially because the Metroplex is so different from what I experienced in my childhood.
Yep.
Just with the growth of folks that have moved here from so many other states. A lot of that is just because of the economy and the housing market,
Yep.
which also ends up driving the type of businesses that show up in the area. And so when I think about, growing up here younger, we would go to church in Fort Worth and we would do different things in Dallas, whether it was, summer activities or concerts and things like that would come to the area. So you had your specific reasons to go to different communities. And when I think of Arlington in particular, we had Six Flags,
Yep.
but other than that, there wasn't a lot. And so to look at how much is in the area by way of the entertainment district.
Yes.
And the type of tourists that come to the area. Of course, over time, with the hurricanes, that also changed what the area looked like. And you ended up having more Cajun restaurants and the daiquiri shops and things like that, really responding to the new neighbors in the area. So that's really been interesting to reflect on, because initially when you're just a resident, you don't always pay attention to like how national disasters or the market changes like what our community looks like.
Yeah.
But thinking about it, it really has changed like who we serve, how we serve, what our activities are here. And when I think of like specifically Arlington, I think about so much that happens in the entertainment district, at the AT&T Stadium and Globe Life Field.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have our little pockets of community that can allow us to be as close as we want to be or as far away as we'd like to be from the tourists and the activities that happen in those areas. But it's really great to be able to have more options for different, interests that you may have. And you asked about like, what is the most, what do I like to do? The type of things that I like to do. Of course, being busy,
Yes.
It doesn't give me a lot of social time, but I really do like to patronize the other small businesses like the Hole in the Walls.
Yes.
That's something that I've always liked to do even before being a small business owner, is getting to, try out these little holes in the walls, meet the owners, get an understanding of like their why behind the business. And, be able to share my experience with others. So that's something that I love to do in the area.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love that. I love that perspective you shared about the impact of the business scene, the impact that we felt from those who came here from the hurricanes. And I never really thought about it that way, as far as the presence of the different Cajun restaurants and things like that. That is so true, because I think the only exposure when I was growing up here in the area to anything Cajun was what was the guy's name on TV who had the cooking show and was always talking about Cajun food.
Yes,
I can't remember
I'm trying
his
to think
name.
Of his name, but yes, you're right.
That's
like
all I
Cajun
knew.
wasn't even a real term around here.
That's all I knew, unless you traveled. I had the opportunity to go to New Orleans with my parents, my dad and my mom, back in, I guess, probably the 80s. My dad is a big football fan, and any opportunity my sisters and I had to go with him to football games, we took him up on those opportunities, and we went. I don't know why, it was just me. I think I was in 6th grade, but I took a trip with him and my mom to New Orleans for a football game.
Okay.
And, tasting the food and understanding the culture and different things like that. But coming back to Dallas, I don't remember much. Now, when Papados came, to
That's
town.
That's what I was about to say, Cajun pasta or something, right? Like there were menus that had Cajun pasta, whether that was like Fridays, and some of that stuff just even I think was added to the menu later on.
Yes.
But yes, like Papados or Red Lobster. Well, Red Lobster wasn't even considered Cajun,
Right.
but
Right. Yep.
yeah.
And then Copeland's, I think, was another restaurant. But
Oh
yeah, no, that's a
yes.
really great point. Yeah. So when I look at the different businesses that are sharing on social media and those that are being highlighted, the restaurants and the food trucks and things like that, there's definitely that presence and that influence from our friends who have come from Louisiana. Great point. Great
Yes,
point.
ma'am.
And you mentioned Fort Worth. So I grew
Mm-hmm.
up in Dallas, but my dad
Okay.
is from Fort Worth. So we have lots of
Okay.
family members in Fort Worth, and it was always very different when we would go and visit, because Fort Worth has
Yes,
a different vibe, but it is
for
its
sure.
own. And one thing I remember about Fort Worth, now this is as I got older and I began to homeschool my kids, whenever we
Mm-hmm.
thought about, the museums and the different experiences we wanted to take the kids on to learn more about art, for some reason we were
Mm-hmm.
always going over to Fort Worth. So I grew a different
Yes.
type of appreciation for the culture that is there in the Fort Worth area. Yeah.
Yes, no, I would totally agree that, like, in the Metroplex, each of the, I would say, big cities, so to speak, have their own culture. And that's something that a lot of neighbors miss out on, because we do have a lot to offer in our respect, or to take advantage of in
Mm-hmm.
our, hometowns or the cities in which we live, that we don't always venture out to the others. And so I'm glad that I was able to have the experiences at a young age to, like I say, go to Fort Worth for church, and that
Yes.
included eating after church and things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
then being in Dallas for different things as well. And then just later on in life, from a career standpoint, I worked a lot in Fort Worth. I worked for the city of Fort Worth, and I
Okay.
also worked for the city of Dallas. And so doing that exposed me to so much of, like, the history, the culture, the politics, the dynamics of those cities, way more than I even knew about my own hometown. So I'm
Mm.
just now at the stage that I'm learning so much about those same type of elements of Arlington, because I'm a business owner, but I knew so much more about Dallas and Fort Worth because of, being a public administrator.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that it's I think a blessing to be part of a metroplex. I mean, there's no shade on Houston, but I mean,
Right.
I think Dallas is better, but but
Partial. I'll echo.
we are right. We are partial, but it is a blessing to be part of this metroplex, and I love explaining to my kids, because my younger kids will ask me, different questions, because kids grow up and they're just in their
Hmm.
city, their school district, and a lot of times they just know what's around them in the immediate area. But then I have to explain to them, well, this is Fort Worth, this is Arlington. Well, this is how big Fort Worth is. This is how big Arlington is.
Yes.
Well, this is how small Mansfield is. This is
Right.
how big Grand Prairie is. So yeah, it's great that we have the metroplex, and then we have our northern cities. I am excited about interviewing
Yes.
some of the business owners that are out in Collin County and Denton County,
Yeah.
because we just have so much to offer. Well, back to
Totally.
your business. So I have a
Hmm.
few questions for you, just so we can get to know you as a business owner, what you have to offer, how you got started, and different things. So let me know, when you decided you wanted to become a business owner, what was your inspiration? What inspired you that you wanted to start a business?
Yeah, so it's like so many layers to that, but I'll be short.
Okay.
I'll mention, so years ago, my husband and I had been thinking about, like, what would we do from a business standpoint, and so we had actually considered a donut shop. We were looking at a franchise to have locally, and so that was a little while ago, and then we kind of just moved away from it. But it was really during the pandemic. That the coffee shop became an idea. And so we really moved forward on that, of course, because the coffee shop is now open, but
Mm-hmm.
it was inspired by a few things. One is my background in social work. and I call it macro social work. So I mentioned being a public administrator. So I've done a lot around community development and neighborhood development. And so there's a concept called a third place. And a third place is a place behind, outside of work and home that gives you a sense of belonging. And so during the pandemic, since I was working remotely, I missed being in a community-based coffee shop where you would see different elected officials and the neighbors from the area because I would frequent one in Fort Worth. And so during the pandemic, I was just like, our neighborhood has nothing that allows you to like engage socially in a safe way while COVID is spreading.
Yeah.
And, you know, so a coffee shop would be that thing, right? Where you could still be able to be safe and over to the side, but still have someone that you see that you can speak to and say hi, or, you know, if you had a meeting and things like that. And so that was the initial thought, is just kind of the desire to have community in a safe way. And then the civic unrest came from the George Floyd situation. And there were some folks that there was some controversy related to how Starbucks had handled a matter related to Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And in the DFW Black-owned restaurant group, people were, you know, dialoguing about it. And they said, where are the Black-owned coffee shops?
Yeah.
And this is after the coffee shop idea had come. But in that response, people could only mention Black-owned coffee shop, a Black-owned coffee shop in Fort Worth and one in Dallas. And there was nothing in between at that time. And so that really was just like, oh my gosh, yes, I have to do this. And I thought that I was going to get out of it because I thought my husband was going to say, no, it's not the time. No, let's not do this. But he supported the idea, and family members were encouraging and holding me accountable to timelines. And so that was it. It's really, you know, my desire to build community in the area, but also to fill the gap so that our neighbors would have options outside of, you know, what existed through just like the traditional chains.
Yeah, I love that. So you wanted to meet a need, fill a gap, and I hadn't never heard of that term, a third place.
Yes,
So you're thinking about, what I love about that is that you're thinking about meeting a need not only for yourself, because it's something that you said that you were blessed to have this place to go, but realizing that this is something that, you know, you realize if there's something that I benefit from, so many other people will benefit from it. And I think that is where a lot of businesses are born, from seeing that need, but not just a need in a sense of what other people will want and what will be profitable, but something you can connect to personally. I love that. I love that. Okay, continue on. Did you want to share anything else on that?
Yeah, so the other part that I would just mention is, you know, because I mentioned my background as a social worker, I also knew that becoming an entrepreneur would increase the opportunities that I would have as a social worker. So I was able to increase, or I've been able to increase community impact as an entrepreneur in a way that I may not have ever even been exposed to as a social worker.
Okay.
And so that was just the other component of being really intentional about taking advantage, you know, not in a negative way, but in a positive way, to kind of uplift the community and have other voices, another voice at the table in these circles that are typically frequented by business owners and elected officials, and not necessarily the general public.
And what are some examples of that, of how you've been able to incorporate that community feel within your coffee shop?
Yes, so just something as small as hosting coffee with the police. At our coffee shop. That hasn't been something that's been in Southeast Arlington. And Southeast Arlington is the most diverse part of the city. And so I know coffee with the cops has been something that's happened before, but it's rare that it happened in our area. And if it did happen in our area, it wasn't marketed directly to who I would say my neighbors are. And I say my neighbors, meaning I live in this community, but then also the neighbors that are like immediately around the coffee shop.
I love
And
that.
so just being able to host those type of events at the coffee shop has engaged neighbors who haven't been civically involved. And, there are people that come in the coffee shop all the time that are looking to buy a house in the area. And so I'm able to talk about, the schools in the area or, the highways and just different things that you don't get that experience if you just walked into a chain restaurant of someone who is only there to sell the product.
Yeah.
Our mantra is brewing community, serving culture. And, I hope that everyone experiences that no matter who it is that is at the shop.
Yes.
That brewing community, serving culture experience.
I love that. And so it's almost like a hub that represents what this community is about, but also a place to kind of a safe place to be able to address whatever those issues that may come up regarding either civic issues or, as you mentioned, a lot of this was born out of what we saw during the pandemic. A place to be able to discuss these matters that are still relevant and saying we haven't forgotten, because there was a lot of things that came up during 2020 where people, it was in their face. People were sharing about it.
Right.
Things were on the news. There were unfortunate incidents that were coming out that we felt that we needed to immediately respond to or just comment or rant about. But I love the fact that you have this hub, this place where you're saying this is a place where we are serving as a resource to continue this conversation, and a place where if something does come up, that this is where we can have those discussions and be able to address or be able to rally around what's needed to bring about change or to allow people to share their voices.
Yes, ma'am.
I love that. See, I didn't know that. I did not know that about your business. Of course, I've been there and frequented your shop before. My kids have come there to sing, but this is a wonderful conversation, learning more about your why and more about what your mission is: brewing community, serving culture.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks so much. So let's move to the section of our conversation where we talk about things that could be helpful to other business owners or aspiring business owners. So can you share a defining moment or a challenge that has shaped your entrepreneurial path? And maybe share some strategies that have been crucial to your business's growth and success.
Yes, I was thinking about that, and I think it's such a great question when you talk about defining moments and challenging moments, because every stage of the business, is going to experience a moment or two. And I would say like the initial challenge was just, going through the process of building out a brick and mortar space, from scratch. It was just a slab of concrete. And so having to go through the process of selecting contractors and, being able to work with the city for permits, and then of course having financing in place and dealing with the unexpectancies, that affect the timeline. Just, it was so much that really stretched me in a lot of ways because I'm a planner and I felt like I had a very conservative timeline, but people had warned me that it doesn't matter how conservative you are, you're not going to be able to plan fully for this experience,
Right.
And so, that was, it really stretched me just kind of as an individual to be more flexible and of course depend on my faith, because I am a person of faith. And so really being able to trust God, without that safety net, I really had to live that out. And so what I would say, and what I do say to others who are either aspiring business owners or, or just growing as a business owner, is you have to get to become vulnerable enough to others to get the support that you need. And that can be challenging because you can't share your vision with everyone. You know, sometimes it can be hard to trust.
Amen.
But it's so necessary when you're a business owner because you're only going to be able to go so far by operating on your own independent ideas and processes, right? And so the more vulnerable that I came of just like casually talking about, you know, what I had in mind with vision and decisions I was making, then it would be just the most random people that would say, oh, let me connect you to this person, or have you heard of this, or what about this? And, you know, a lot of times we don't want to share is because if it's our baby, you know, we're critical. We don't want the criticism and we're like, I got this, right? But there's, you know, value on the other side that, you know, sharing those things can open yourself up to resources and opportunities that would not have existed if you didn't, you know, stop safeguarding so much of your vision. So I thought that was something really important that, you know, you also have some negative experiences with that because you'll share something and say, oh my gosh, I just told them about this and look at what, you know, so you have to be willing to, you know, deal with the unintended consequences, but also, you know, again, from the faith standpoint, trust that, you know, God will direct you and connect you with those who are safe to have those conversations with, and that at the end of the day, we know that all things work together for the good. So
come on, preach now.
Even if someone else had, you know, a malicious intent, that ultimately, you know, it's not, that weapon won't prosper type thing. We're all uniquely in our own lanes and can only do business in the way that, you know, we individually can show up. That's been a great learning experience.
And you said something, excuse me real quick, but you said something I had to write down. And I can see how this is applicable not only in business, but in relationships and in life in general. You said you're only able to go so far depending on your own ideas and processes. That will preach right there. Because
the whole message.
Literally, because we can get tunnel vision into thinking that this is the way that I want to do it. I'm so excited because, you know, I got this vision. I know what I'm going to do. You know, I have this, I can picture how this is going to work out. But realizing that as great as your idea is, you can only go so far just depending on your own idea, your own way of doing it. So we have to open up ourselves to listen to whether it is advice from someone who's been there before or someone who has observed something and they're like, want to just like pull you to the side and say, hey, this is a thought that I have. So in relationships, you know, we can only go so far depending on our own idea and our own process. So we have to allow people into our relationship to be able to say, I'm going to walk through this with you. Hey, I see that you're doing this little thing right here that you might need to tweak. You might need to listen to some wisdom here. So I love that. And I love that you're not just someone who's talking about it from a perspective of, I want to get there, but you actually saw it through and you pushed through what those challenges were. And you saw everything come up. You saw things being painted. You saw your sign coming up. You got all your POS set up and you got your first sale. So you persevered through all those challenges. And I have a question for you on that. Okay. What kept you going when you got to those points where, you know, you said you're a planner, and I'm sure at the beginning you could see that these are the steps that I need to follow, but then now something crept in that you hadn't planned for. Was it discouraging, disheartening at times? And if so, what kept you going and kept you from just saying, okay, well, that was a great idea, but this is too hard?
Yeah, that's a good question because, you know, some things that we experienced, when I think about it now, I'm like, oh, I don't know how I kept pushing, you know, during that. But I think it's partly, you know, because we had first of all invested so much
Yeah.
on the front end. You sign contracts and things like that, for the space and with contractors, and
Yeah.
you want to fulfill those commitments. So it was beyond an idea at that point. When the challenges that started happening, it's like we're in this thing,
No turning back.
And exactly. So it's a risk on either side, right? You can quit and deal with all of what comes with quitting when you have contractual obligations, or you can keep going, and trust that on the other side of it, that there's light at the end of the tunnel. But I don't feel, I mean, there were some discouraging moments just as far as like, and I say discouraging, it more so was just the frustrating moments of like, this shouldn't take this long. Why isn't this like this? Or, just looking at the system of how things go, and, thinking about how much planning that I tried to do from a due diligence standpoint that, I'm like, why? It just, shouldn't take all of this. So, but I think that it really was, for one, the investments that have been made, but my husband hadn't given up either. And so I think that would have been more challenging if he was saying, okay, this was good idea. I was in support, but why aren't we open yet? We haven't sold anything yet. So that's part of it. But then the other part of it as well is we both were still working full-time jobs. Okay. And so there was this security too of like, we hadn't used up all of our financial resources. I think that there are different business owners that take different approaches. And a lot of times, you use up all your own finances, and, your household is affected, and you can't even go and get more capital because you've used up what would have been considered as a collateral. Yeah. And so I had some good advice early on like, you don't want to get too much debt, but you also don't want to use up, all of your family's resources so that you don't have anything to fall back on. So that was part of it. And then just, like I said, my faith, it really was like, okay, Lord, I need you to show up. And so he was really intentional to drop different, for favor to pop up at the right time. So like immediately after I had created the LLC, and I went to, it would be little things like I was looking for a coffee school. I was like, how do people learn about all of this? And, the moment you say something out loud, Google, Big Brother hears everything you say. And so on social media, there was Texas Coffee School that popped up on my timeline. I'm like, oh, there's an actual like school for this. And I look it up, and it's literally in Arlington, like less than, 5 miles from the coffee shop location. And so it's just like, what? Like how, so it would be little things like that just like, I see you guys, and then I applied the Tarrant County Community College had created a new opportunity called Everyday Entrepreneur Venture Fund. Okay. And there were hundreds of applications, and I was one of 9 people selected for their first cohort.
Wow, what a blessing.
And which included a grant opportunity. So it was those things that were happening. Like I didn't have a space leased or anything at that point that I'm like, okay, I'm on to something. Like they believe in my business plan, Yeah. So it was just little things like that kept being those the affirming I guess my affirmations, and just encouraging despite all of the other things that were happening behind the scenes. The community was acknowledging the need and affirming us to keep going just by the honors that were coming out as we shared our vision.
Well, kudos to you. And I want to go back to your motto, brewing community, serving culture. So in that, I'm going to just kind of try to paint a picture. Imagine, me coming in, I'm new to the area. I understand that this coffee shop exists not just to serve coffee, but to impact the community, to enlighten and to support those who are, either there to visit or who live in the area. So I'm coming up to your counter. I see your menu. tell me about your products. Tell me about, what I might be looking to purchase, or what can make me feel warm on a cold day, or yeah, on a cold day, or what
Mm-hmm.
might cool me off or give me a pep or some energy. Tell me about what you serve.
Very important question, right? Because we are a coffee shop, and I get so excited about all of the ultimate, like our objectives and the vision, that it's like, okay, well, if I come today, what do I get?
Yes.
And so we do have your traditional offerings, such as your cappuccinos, your lattes, matcha, chai. We offer baked goods, which includes croissants and muffins and chocolate chip cookies. So we have those traditional offerings that you see at a lot of other coffee shops. But what really makes us unique is we have signature offerings that really speak more to the community that's around us,
Mm.
to our neighbors that, frequent the area, but just like that represents the diversity in the area. And so what I mean by that is, for instance, we have a signature drink that's called the Odom 97. And the Odom 97 is tribute to the first and only minority mayor of Arlington, former
Mm.
Mayor L.Z. Odom. And, you know,
Yeah, I love
as
that.
yeah, and I would say coincidence, but it's not coincidental that, it is our best seller. It has mocha
Wow.
hazelnut and Irish cream, and people love to order it. And we didn't add it to the menu until Mr. Odom actually drank it and approved it.
Okay, I
And so
love
we have a
that.
picture of him. And so we have that on the menu. We have horchata latte, which is really popular for all of our neighbors, but it's, a tribute, or, it's inspired by the traditional Hispanic drink, or chocolate.
Okay.
And so, and then chai, which is the black tea. And we teach our neighbors that we don't say chai tea, even though that's very common on a lot of menus, because chai means tea.
Mm.
And so when you say chai tea, then you say what?
TT.
Oh, is that TT? And we don't sell TTs. We have TTs, but we don't sell TTs. And so, we really are intentional on, again, providing information in a non-intrusive way,
Okay.
whether it's through our menu or display boards. And so we have those on the menu. And we have smoked chicken salad. I should mention that there would be neighbors that would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she didn't mention that. So we sell smoked chicken salad, regular and spicy. And it's just kind of a part of, like, it's a common staple, that many of our neighbors like. And it's a light bite that you wouldn't find on other menus. In the same way that we also have peach cobbler chai and blueberry cobbler chai. And we have a drink that's called the Perfect Verse, which is brown sugar and chai. And that name comes from the movie Brown Sugar,
Nice.
where there's a verse in it that says, you're like a perfect verse over a tight beat. So we do little things like that, where it's like, if you know, you know. And if you don't know, we're going to tell you about it so you can know too.
So you're being educational in more ways than one.
Yes, ma'am.
I love that. I'll have to come in and try some of those.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm making notes and thinking about all the different tastes that we have. I'm definitely a hazelnut person, and one of my girls is into chai, not chai tea, but chai. Okay. So you taught me something today.
Yeah.
So
and we do have the alternative milks as well. So okay. I know that there are a lot of folks that are conscious about, their dairy intake. And so
absolutely.
We do have, of course, whole milk, 2%, half and half, but then we also have oat milk and almond milk.
Okay. So y'all go and check out Cup of Vibes. When you normally may do that afternoon, you're trying to find that pickup and you want to pull up into one of the more one of the bigger named shops. You can actually come to a place that is brewing community and serving culture, and you're supporting this business, this Black-owned business, and you are also just investing in the community. So I love that. Y'all take some notes on what she said, that they have on the menu, some of the best sellers, and be on the lookout for new things that are probably coming. Thank you for sharing that, Charletra. Well, I want to go back
You're welcome.
to your business and
Hmm.
ask you about what are some of the strategies or tips or things that you have implemented that have been crucial to your growth and success.
We're continuing to evolve. So,
Mm,
we have these strategies that we've deployed that there's always opportunities to strengthen. But what I've been very intentional on from day one is having a consistent
yeah.
experience. And so, with our baristas, and all of my baristas have been with me for at least a year.
Okay.
And we've only been open a year and a few months. And
That
so
says a
they've
lot.
been with me for a while. Yeah, that's been a blessing because I know that's not everyone's
Mm,
experience. But I'm really intentional about, how they engage. And we all have different personalities. And so it doesn't show up the same with each barista, but I want it to be that every neighbor has a consistent experience from the standpoint of knowing that they're going to receive a greeting when they come in and a quality beverage and a bye bye, see you later
mm,
when you leave, and that we're also going to be checking on you to see if you need anything else while you are there. And I think that has gone a long way because the generations to come. And I think consumers overall are not just buying products just because it's the product they want. They're making choices based on how they
yep.
feel when they are there and how they are treated. I know that I'm one that I will walk out of a place if no one speaks to me,
Yep.
and so it's those type of pet peeves that really make me be intentional on how we show up as well. And it's a given that people are not going to always like everything. There's going to be drinks that we think is the best concoction ever, and someone says it's gross.
Mm-hmm.
But my strategy or our strategy is to make sure that they can leave knowing about something that they like.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to talk about what else can you try or are you willing to try, because ultimately we want them to be pleased with the experience they have when they walked out the door,
Yeah.
even though they may not have liked everything about it
Mm,
from the moment they walked in. So I think that's just really big, and that a lot of that has to do with the social work part of me too, and just um, meeting people where they are and being able to build rapport in informal settings. So that's been really important, as well as utilizing social media and being intentional on appealing to the type of individuals that walk in our shop. And so there's a huge Muslim community that's in the area.
mm-hmm.
So I have to think about, what are things that, appeal to their
Yeah.
community, and, the way they eat and what they drink, and but still also staying true to what the vision is. So that strategy is really knowing the community as well.
Yeah.
Because again, there are some businesses that their model is really just about production and revenue,
Yeah.
which is important because it's not a nonprofit, it's a
Mm-hmm.
business. But again, when you think about the behaviors and what drives consumers to come again, you have to know something about them.
Yeah.
And so that's been really important for me
Yeah.
to continue to do, is engage the community and have great customer
Yeah,
service.
that customer service is always key, and you're right. That is what sticks with us as consumers. When we leave, or oftentimes what we think about when we decide, where we're going to go, where we're going to.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing to go somewhere to pick up a cup of coffee, but like you mentioned, as far as providing an atmosphere where I may want to go and do some homework or get some work done, or
Right.
have a work meeting, I think about the vibe of the
Yes.
place that I'm coming to be, to disconnect from, the other things that I've had going on in life, or to connect with someone. I think about all those things. And I remember when my kids and I came, it was a extremely cold day. I think
Yes.
it was in December, because they were coming to
Mm-hmm.
sing, some Christmas songs, and your baristas were so helpful and, engaging with us. And, they did a great job explaining your offerings and allowed my kids to, taste a couple things before they decided what they were going to order. So you have done a
Mhm.
phenomenal job with that. And that says a lot to have those individuals who've been with you for that period of time, low turnover. You must be doing something right. And I'll throw this out there. I don't know what you think about it, but our kids' band is Caramelody. So if you ever are looking for a new drink, hint, hint, that you might want to name after the band with some caramel flavor, hey, just throwing that out there. Just throwing it out there. But we had an absolutely great experience when they came out to sing, and hoping to have them come back and join you guys again in the future. So, my last question I have for you is, how do you see the future of your industry evolving, and what role does your business play in that evolution?
Very important question, especially when we talk about the coffee industry, because although there is a lot of history related to the Black community, particularly Africans, as it relates to coffee beans, and um, so the Black community has always been a part of the coffee industry, but the face of the industry has typically been a white male.
Mm,
And so when you look at, individuals that are considered coffee connoisseurs or on the cutting edge, and have the most impact in coffee is usually a white male. But as we've evolved, and again, a lot of what happened during the pandemic, and the unrest that was related to the George Floyd situation, and just a lot of things that have happened with the economy, there has been a lot of diversity that has come into the industry. So you do see a lot more minority owned business owners that are opening up not
yes.
only the independent coffee shops, but they're buying franchises,
Yeah, let's
in the
go.
coffee industry. Yeah, and so that's really been something that's happening within the industry. And I feel like I know that I'm a part of that, even because I see the competitors on how they have been showing up,
Mm,
since I've come into the community, like what shows up on their menu and
mm-hmm.
what type of events they're starting to host at their shops, and competition is healthy for us, and so, ultimately, if my goal is brewing community, and serving culture, I don't only want that to happen through Cup of Vibes. I want it to be, um, a call to action to other business owners that consider themselves as community-based shops. So that I feel like that we've already been a part of that by pushing others in the community to show up in that way, even though that hadn't been a part of their original strategies. But
Mm,
they see that, oh, I'm not doing that,
yeah.
and maybe I should, and it's drawing different folks to them for those ways. So I think that we'll continue to have a role in that, and challenge the communities, but also increase the quality, increase the expectations that our neighbors can have, because I have folks that come in all the time and say, well, we came here because you have the best review in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And so it should be that others in the area should say, how do we make sure that we're doing better at our customer service?
Yeah.
Because we have options. There are other options, and people don't have to come to us if they're not having a great
Mm,
experience. And so I'm glad that we are a part of the coffee industry, and that, again, even though the Black community has had a role in the industry since the inception of coffee making, that we are now a part of we are a face now as well.
yeah. I love that. And what a mature way of viewing the neighboring businesses as a healthy competition. And that shows that you have an invested interest or vested interest in the community and not just your own, opportunity to build wealth as an individual. And that's important because you are raising the bar, and you're showing that you care that the people who are patronizing the businesses in the immediate area, that you want them to have a great experience when they're buying their chicken, when they're buying their groceries,
Right.
when they're going to fill up their
Absolutely.
gas tanks, all the things that we have to do. You're saying I exist in this community to make an impact, not only in the way that I'm doing it in my four walls, but also inspiring the businesses in the area to step up to the plate as well. I
Yes,
love
ma'am.
it, love it, love it. All right, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that no matter what area the business owners who are from when they're listening to this podcast, what you are sharing is insights that can help businesses, aspiring businesses in the Fort Worth area, in Ellis County, Collin County, to see themselves and their presence in their community and the audience that they serve as being beyond just serving a product or providing a service. Although those things are very important, you have brought home the importance of making an impact on individuals and then also the businesses that are around them. And so I think that's just such a unique offering that you have as a business owner. It shows a lot of, I guess your background that you have, that you mentioned in social work. It's almost like you think about a teacher who may be able to teach math really well or teach science really well, but you can tell if they care about students. Yeah, you can get up there and talk about chemistry,
Hmm.
but do you care
Absolutely.
about that student who may otherwise be do very well in your class, but is having some issues at home, and you see the change on the look on their face and why they're not excelling this
Right.
6 weeks, where last 6 weeks they were knocking it out of the park. So that is such a value to have as a business owner and as a leader in the community. So thank you for sharing that. I know that you will inspire others as they are listening to this podcast, and even young people, because I encourage, as you're listening to this podcast, speaking to the audience, as you are listening to this podcast, if you are thinking about young people who right now have talked about, wanting to be a business owner, be an entrepreneur, or wanting to be an influencer on social media, or just may not even know that this is something that they may be good at, please invite them to listen to this episode, to listen to the podcast, because I think as we hear these stories and we hear this inspiration, we see business in a different way. We see it more than just a place where we are giving our money, but we see it as these are individuals who put in this hard work, blood, sweat, and tears to see a vision through fruition. But they also had a significant why as to why they are doing that, to impact those who are going to be affected by it. So, Charletra, I know what you are doing is going to leave a legacy. And so, as people are sharing this episode with young people and they're listening to your story of success and coming in to support your business, you're going to see more and more fruits of your labor and fruits of your faith, you and your husband, the faith that you guys had to just step out and say, this is what we want to provide to the community, and we're going to stick it out and see it through. So I wish you all the best in your business endeavors and what you all are doing to impact the
Thank you so
community.
much.
So, speaking of that, can you share with us just some things that you have coming up, whether it's events or specials or things that we can do to support you to patronize Cup of Vibes?
Yes, I would love to share that every first Saturday of the month, we do have open mic, and it's free. It's hosted by Mike Wynn Entertainment in partnership with Cup of Vibes. And so we invite all of the community to come. We pride ourselves on
Yeah.
having a vibe an experience that's comfortable for all ages, and so you're not going to get all of the riffraff. We're intentional about who gets, on how we show up, so that everyone that attends feels comfortable. And so that's, of course, the poetry, singing. We've had comedians, we've had musicians, and so every first Saturday at Couple Vibes at 7 to 9 p.m. We do that, the open mic with Mike Gwynn Entertainment. So we'd love for you to come out there. Of course, this month is Black History Month. And so what we did for the first time last year, and we've been able to do again this year, is we welcome nominations from the community of Black leaders who have an affiliation with Arlington. And we've allowed the community to vote for individuals that would inspire drinks that we offer during Black History Month. And so we just had our selections. We announced our selections this week based on community vote. And so there is Malik Johnson, Lisa Thompson, and also Anthony Grissett, who were selected this year to inspire our Black History drinks. And so those will be, we're still working on the concoctions, but we'll have display boards in the shop where people are able to not only taste these great drinks, but also learn how those three individuals have contributed either in Arlington or in other communities.
Wow,
but they have some type of affiliation.
So I can see that definitely as something that, listeners, if you are listening to this in within the month of February and even thinking about next year, it's a great place, I think, to bring your young people, because, coffee shops, I think it is becoming a little bit more popular for older high school students to go and hang out at a coffee shop. But even if you're young people, if it's not their thing, I think that would be a great opportunity to bring them to a place, because they learn about Black history. They see movies, they hear things on the news perhaps, or read books, but to come to a local establishment where they can support the business, but then also learn about some of our living leaders, in who are making Black history through these drinks that you guys have come up with. So if you are listening and you have young people, I want to invite you guys out to Cup of Vibes so you can be teaching your kids some Black history as they come and support. And what is your address there in Arlington?
Yes, we are at 800 East Sublet Road, Suite 170. That's in South Arlington, in between Matlock and Collins. Again, that's 800 East Sublet Road.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, guys, we encourage you to visit our website, where you will find information and links to the wonderful products and services offered by all of the guests of our show, as well as information on other Dallas-Fort Worth Black-owned businesses. You can find us at essentialpodcastnetwork.com or at dallasfortworthblackowned.com. And Charletra, you want to share with us your social media and your website, please?
Yes, ma'am. The website is www.cupovibes. That's with no F, and it's an S instead of a Z. So cupovibes.com, and then at cupovibes on Instagram as well as Facebook.
Awesome. And we will have those links on our website as well. So if you are listening to this later, you'll be able to go to our websites and see information on all the guests of our show. If you would like to recommend a business owner to be part of our podcast, to be part of our website, Dallas Fort Worth Black Owned, please get in touch with us at info@essentialpodcastnetwork.com. And I will get you information on how you can get involved. Well, that does it for today's episode of Beyond the Skyline. Thank you again for joining me. It has been a pleasure, Charletra, just learning more about you and what you have to offer to the community, and your passion for connecting people with your business and with our culture. And I wish you the very best in your business. As I mentioned before, anything that we can be a part of to help support, we definitely want to do that. So, guys, please stay tuned for more inspiring stories from the diverse world of Black-owned businesses in Dallas-Fort Worth. And until next time, make it a great one. Bye-bye.